Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 7 of Andor. A lot of stuff happens in this episode. This is the first time it feels like we actually get everyone's plot line all at once happening. And we just get a lot of forward progress this time. This definitely feels like the setup to the next big arc of the show, I guess, right? Because the idea is supposed to be that like every 3 episodes is its own kind of self-contained little arc where like like it'll culminate in some big event and then the next arc will start, right? So this one definitely feels like that, the setup to whatever the hell is going to happen next. So basically we're getting the ramifications of the big heist that happened, and they really emphasize how it's being felt throughout the galaxy, throughout the empire, like all the senators on Coruscant and all the people of the ISB, and even all the people like local wise of Cassian's home, like the small town people, even they're hearing about it and they're like, you know, like his mom is starting to be like, oh, maybe we should rebel, you know. So because we got everyone's arc, I'm gonna try to like go over everyone's stuff just one at a time, because it's, you know, we switch characters a lot in this episode, so I'll try to cover everything. I might forget some things, but yeah, so let's go ahead and start with Cyril. I think this one's the easiest one to get through. So you know, he's living with his mom again. I think they're on Coruscant, and yeah, you know, his mom is constantly just like, is that what you're gonna wear for your interview? Your uncle got you this interview, you know. And she is just, look, she's nagging him, but also it's like he's at such a low point in his life that you can't help but feel bad for this guy, because like his everything that he worked for, everything he believed in, like got torn down because he couldn't catch Cassian Andor. So it's kind of funny, and I thought, you know, because they mentioned his interview with the Bureau, I thought maybe he's interviewing for the ISB, but no, he's going for some other bureau. I don't remember what it was, but basically it's just a bunch of cubicles. He's a big office worker now, and they go through them all, and it's just like, well, you know, these people manage you know, like the money, these people manage the air quality, so there's an opening in fuel quality control, you know. And so it's like just the most boring type jobs you can imagine for the Empire. You know, I think they even had a redundancy apartment, as they said something like that. So like they have an apartment for redundancy, which that's kind of hilarious. And basically by the end of the episode, we see him just like scrolling through numbers and names and lists and whatever he can. And you know, we'll get to this, but by the end of the episode, Andor, under a different name, is in the system now, and I feel like that's where he's gonna catch him, because now that, you know, he's gonna be able to see his face or something in the system, in the Imperial system. He's gonna be like, ah, there he is, I found him, you know, because he's sitting there looking at monitors all day in his little cubicle. So yeah, Cyril is still like, it feels like he's being set up as the anti-Andor, you know, like he was in a similar position as Andor, really low in life, but he's the opposite. You know, he wants to be in the system, he wants to be important, he wants to work for the Empire, you know. And now he is, but he's still really low on the ring of jobs, you know. So feel bad for Cyril still, and his mom is not giving him a break. I mean, you know, his mom is helping him out career wise, but she's very judgmental. You know, she's constantly just like, is that what you gotta do? It kind of looks like you're begging for attention with your tailored collar. I'm like, geez, give him a break. Leave him alone. So it's kind of hilarious, but also really sad at the same time. Okay, so next let's go to Andor. I feel like this is interesting. So we don't focus super like a lot on Andor, but a lot of like life stuff happens to him real quick in this episode. So Andor ends up going back home, right? Which normally, yeah, of course he would, right? He goes back home, he's got all this money now that he was promised from doing the job, and now he wants to disappear. So he goes to his mom's house and he's like, hey, pack your bags, let's get out of here. And his mom's like, well, let's wait till tomorrow, right? Which right away I was like, what, does his mom flip or something? Like, she gonna report him or something? That'd be weird, right? But for some reason she doesn't want to leave. So he goes and checks on Bix, and of course she's pissed off at him because, well, it was a complicated situation. Tim, her boyfriend, got killed because he thought her and Cassian were together. It was, you know what I mean? It's a whole thing. And basically she tells him, like, look, just get out of here. Just, everyone blames you for what happened. You were on the run, and then you came home, and so of course they followed you. And now look at this. Now the whole town is covered with stormtroopers, which, by the way, in this episode, we actually see stormtroopers. I think this is the first time in the show we've seen stormtroopers. So there you go. They're here. And so Cassian's like, okay, fine. Here's the money. I'm going to go. He goes back home, and the next day, his mom is like, yeah, we're not leaving with you. You got to go. You got to get out of here. You're wanted. But I'm going to stay. And her whole reasoning is basically that because the news of this big heist is everywhere, she's kind of been emboldened to be like, you know what? I've sat here just waiting to die this whole time, and they killed my husband years ago, which we do get little flashbacks of. And she's like, you know, I'm gonna be a rebellion. I'm gonna. I don't know if she knows anyone or what her plan is really, but she wants to rebel now. You know, she wants to try and fight the Empire here on her home turf, like the garrison that's right over there. You know, like she wants to make this a real local thing, you know, whereas Cassian's like, this is crazy, we gotta go, you know, because he does not, you know, he's not bought into this whole rebellion thing. You know, he was in it for the money and then he wants to get out of there. Like, he's not, he's not here fighting for a cause, right? So we're gonna find out what happens there, because he actually does end up leaving his mom there, you know, which he kind of has to because he's on the run, right? He can't be seen. Now the flashbacks that we see, his dad, the guy that we saw, you know, with what's her name, Minerva, or no, I don't remember her name. Anyways, his dad, his adoptive father, they're in the town square, and this is exactly kind of how we were told that he was hung in the town square, where like all these people are outraged, and it's clone troopers. It's not stormtroopers, it's clone troopers. So it kind of gives you a gauge of when this took place. And you see some people in the crowd yelling at them, saying like, long live the Republic, you know, so you can assume this is like, you know, not so long after Revenge of the Sith. The Empire had just become a thing at this point. They're still using clones, and his dad was trying to calm some people down, and then I guess they just saw him and they're like, hey, you get back in line, you know, and they, you know, they had the guns trained on him, and then at some point they hung him in the streets, and you see part of his body just kind of hanging there, and it's real messed up. And then we see a younger Cassian, like he has like a bat or some kind of thing, and he's like running towards these clone troopers, and we don't see what happened. Obviously he lived through that encounter, but he at some point he tried to attack some clone troopers, and we, you know, I'm sure we'll see the rest of that. But fascinating stuff. Now if you're confused about the timeline, what we know now is that the flashbacks to when he was a small kid, when he was like, what, 10 or something when they found him, those actually took place before the Clone Wars start. You know, because the logo, and well, first of all, the Separatists existed a couple of years before the Clone Wars. Like, that had been a thing that was brewing, and the Clone Wars actually didn't trigger until the Geonosis thing. But the Separatists were a thing, because if you watch Attack of the Clones, they're talking about the Separatists already. The Clone Wars haven't started, Separatists already exist, you know, so it's, you can argue, you know, it happened, like, he was a kid a couple years before that, or, you know, maybe even the logo, maybe they weren't even Separatists yet, because we see Separatist logos, and it's kind of confusing, because everyone immediately was like, okay, so this is during Clone Wars? But no, it's before that. So that way, after Revenge of the Sith, they're still using clone troopers, but he kind of looks like an adult already, you know? So it's like, okay, when does this happen? I know, the timeline's a little wonky. I'm sure someone's going to sit here and do the math to be like, okay, well, during this flashback, he could only have been this many years old, you know? But they didn't hire like a younger actor to play Cassian in that flashback. It was like grown Cassian. So it's like, is he supposed to be maybe 18 in that shot? Who knows? Who knows? But in any case, it's cool. We saw clone troopers and we saw stormtroopers this episode, so I don't care how the math works or if you look too old or too young. I don't know. I don't care. That's not the point of the scene. Anyways, Cassian, he goes off, and when we get to the scene, we get some kind of funky music, you know. It's like doo, 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 doo. Yeah, I'm not doing the music right, but he's basically retreated to like this beach resort location where he's just like, he's got some lady in his bed, and I don't know if he's like stealing money or if he's like just has his money kind of hidden away. It's hard to tell even how long he's supposed to have been here, because like they cut from him leaving home to him just like he's here. So I don't know if this is supposed to be like months and months later, or what the deal is, because he seems to be pretty established in this place, you know, this little apartment or rented out hotel space or whatever this was that he's at. But anyways, he's at this beach resort area. We see a couple of shore troopers. You know, I mean, I used to call them Scarif troopers because, you know, that's where we saw them, was on Scarif, but they're shore troopers. You know, the tan and the white stripe and the, you know, that whole thing. And basically we see a bunch of people running away that are, I guess they did something anti-imperial, like graffiti or something. And Cassian didn't do anything. He was just walking, and because he's looking around trying not to look suspicious, he of course looks suspicious by looking around. So this trooper stops him and he gets arrested, and we do get, you know, I thought maybe this is where K2SO comes in, but you know, no, it's just we see a couple of, what is K2SO's model? The Imperial security droids, I think that's what they are. Anyways, we see a couple of them, and they restrain Cassian, and he ends up getting sentenced to 6 years in prison. 6 years in prison for literally doing nothing. He didn't do anything. He was just like trying not to be suspicious while these guys are running away, and they're just like, "What? Are you in on it? Are you part of it?" And now he's in jail. So we'll see how that works out. I'm sure this is where Cyril will like see that, oh, he's in the system. Oh man. And of course, there's other people looking for him, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Andor's in prison now, which we've seen some of this in the trailer. So obviously he's gonna break out. He's not gonna spend the next 6 years in this prison. So he's gonna break out somehow, and I'm sure that's gonna be like the next major like revolt thing that happens, and that inspires other people. So it's kind of funny that like Cassian's part of these big events, but he's not. It's not because he believes in the cause. He just like happens to be there this time. He's like, okay. So you know, it's kind of cool. Okay, so next up we have Luthen. Let's talk about Luthen and a little bit of Mon Mothma. So Luthen and Mothma have this fascinating conversation, in which I need to watch the scene again, but basically it's Mothma was surprised that, you know, she was not part of this plan at all, and she's like, I can't believe you did this. It's gonna cause suffering, it's gonna cause this and that. Basically Mothma, you know, she doesn't want to act on actually doing anything. You know, she wants to build up, she wants to, you know, create like a network and all this, and Luthen's like, the network's built, it's built. Like he mentions something about like if you build a weapon you have to use it, you know. And so you can kind of see how he's getting more Saw Gerrera type, you know, where he's like, all right, we built the network, we have the money, we're gonna do some stuff with this, you know, like we're actually gonna cause some damage. And even if that means that the Empire is gonna take it out on people, all that's gonna do is, you know, cause more people to see how evil the Empire is, right? And so Mon Mothma's like, well, I know I don't want people to get hurt at all. And he's like, well, you know, this is the way it's done. This is how this is how you play a rebellion, you know. So obviously we have conflicting ideologies on like how to go about this already. And you know, like I said, very Saw Gerrera type stuff happening, and I have to imagine that Luthen's meeting with Saw Gerrera will come up pretty soon. Meanwhile, so we have I think her name was Vel, the blonde rebel girl. She's on Coruscant, I'm assuming, and she's there to meet with Luthen. And instead, I don't know, it's this girl with brown hair and a red hood. I don't know if this is the lady who works at the artifacts place with Luthen. I don't know if this is the same lady or if this is someone else. I honestly could not tell. I couldn't tell who this was. But she meets Vel, and she's like, hey, Luthen's not coming. You know, yeah, he says yeah, it sucks about all those people on the team that died. But we have one loose end, Cassian Andor, and he knows what Luthen looks like, so we kind of have to tie up that loose end. And Vel's like, you want me to kill him? And she's like, yeah, you know, just, he's a loose end, can't have that happen. So that's the thing, is that like you start to see, you know, if Luthen really asked for this to happen, it's like, okay, so Luthen's not like a super great guy, you know, like he went out of his way to recruit Cassian. You know, he's like, he learned all about him and got all his specifics, and like he went through all this trouble to recruit him, and now that the job's done, he's like, yeah, but he knows what I look like, so I gotta kill him. It's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? So it's like he's not so great. Luthen kind of got a dark side to him, right? Which, I mean, that makes him more fascinating, because he's very much a morally great character who's like, he's doing it all for the right cause, but he's absolutely like you're gonna kill Cassian, the guy that you hired to do all this, and now you're just gonna like, yeah, but he knows too much. Jeez, man, that's crazy. That's real crazy. So, you know, I don't know if Vel's actually gonna go through with it, because I think that we're gonna end up seeing that like Vel trusts Cassian now, because he did like the right thing with that skier guy, right? So I don't think she'll go through with it, but it is like, you know, is Cassian gonna find out about this? And he's not gonna be able to trust Luthen after this, you know. So I don't know, fascinating stuff. And then of course we continue with Mon Mothma, who Mon Mothma leaves there, and she has this big, I don't know what you'd call it. It wasn't a dinner, I guess it was a dinner party, I don't know. Maybe it was a dinner party or just like a social gathering or whatever, but it's a bunch of senators, a bunch of people, and from everywhere, you know, the high class of Coruscant, you know, just how they always do, right? Which is funny, because like it feels like all the time we've seen Mon Mothma, it's always like preparing for one of these events, you know. It's always like a dinner party or a drinking party or whatever, you know, like it's just like, that's just her life, is constantly going to these events. And so she meets up with one of her old friends from Chandrila. I don't know if it's like the person that's just kind of another senator, really, or some other type of representative from Chandrila, but she's talking to him, being like, hey, what's up, buddy? So look, I'm gonna tell you some stuff, and I need you to just smile like we're talking about good old times from high school, you know, like just keep on smiling, make sure everything looks normal. Okay, so I need to get in my family's funds, because I'm funding an outreach program. You don't want to know more than that, you know. And so this guy is like putting the pieces together, like, okay, yeah. And basically it's funny, because at first he was like, you might find my politics kind of extreme, you know, you don't want to know what I think about the Empire. And now Mon Mothma kind of turns the tables to be like, okay, so the Mon Mothma you know, and everyone knows, it's a front. I'm actually I'm doing stuff behind the scenes. I'm funding things and working on projects, so I need to get in charge of my money, and I'm trusting you to tell you this. But yeah, you might find my politics a bit extreme, so you don't want to know everything. So, you know, that's pretty funny. And let's see, I think that might be the last time we see Mon Mothma. Am I right on that? I don't know. Okay, because let's see, we have Vel going after Cassian Andor. Cassian Andor is in prison now. Cyril's just like in his little cubicle. Mon Mothma is now kind of in league with this guy, which, you know, again, it's Mon Mothma's whole thing is that, like, you know, she's like, you can't trust my husband, you can't trust, who knows how many people you can't trust in here, right? Like, it's not even safe to probably talk while we're at this dinner party, to be honest. So yeah, just fascinating stuff that's happening here. The galaxy at large really was affected by this heist, and I love that they're demonstrating that, you know, that they're really like emphasizing that, like, yeah, everyone heard about this. Oh, the ISB. I didn't even talk about the ISB yet. Okay, so her name's Deidre. It was the blonde ISB officer that we've been following, and she's the one who's like really putting the pieces together, like figuring out there's this whole network where it's like these people steal this from over here, and then next thing we know it's found over there, and then they're funneling money over there, and it's this whole rebel network, which again, Luthen is doing stuff with the people that he hires and works with, and then Mothma's funding other pieces. So this network is it seems to be pretty loosely connected, like none of them they don't have an actual leadership, right? Like they're not all following one person or one group of people, everyone's just kind of given separate jobs by other people at different times. But yeah, so she's putting it all together, and we saw that other ISB officer kind of like, hey, you're getting in my territory. This is my sector. You back off. And they have like this kind of like real public kind of squabble in front of the rest of their crew, in front of their boss. And the boss ends up taking Deidre's side, saying like, hey, you know what? You're actually, you're coming up with evidence, and you're putting pieces together. Okay, here, take this sector. That guy's not doing anything with it anyways. And basically he just tells her like, all right, watch your back though, because everyone around here is kind of, they're all scheming for the same position. Like everyone wants to just get promotions and gain more power. So like you're doing good work, but kind of seems like that guy's gunning for you, right? So you want to watch out. So we'll see how that connects. It does feel like at some point this ISB officer and Cyril are gonna like team up, right? Like that seems to be where that's going, because Cyril's gonna figure out something with all those like analyzing all these numbers. Right now he's working on like fuel quality, but it feels like he's really gonna use this as a chance to like oh, Cassian Andor's in prison, but he's going under a different name, huh? Interesting. Now, the name that he used, it sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it, so I'm not entirely sure. I think it was a reference to something. There's probably a whole lot of stuff that I missed in this episode, and there's still like a handful of names that like they'll say a name or a planet name, like, okay, what was that again? The truth is, I'm watching this in House of the Dragon, and there are so many like names I'm supposed to be trying to keep track of that like, it's kind of difficult, to be honest with you. But in any case, yeah, this was a great episode of Andor. It felt like we got a little bit of everything, and that was really nice. And so I think I really prefer this, where like, show me the Mon Mothma, show me the ISB officer, show me a little bit of Cyril, because not much is happening there. Show me what's happening with Andor, and then Luthen, like, you know what I mean? Like, because there's a lot of moving parts happening here. And the fact that it ends with Cassian just going to jail after he was hanging out on a beach resort, that's kind of funny, so he's definitely just kind of thrown into the next situation literally by force, just like, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. So we'll see what happens there. And what's his mom planning on doing? Like, she's gonna just start a little rebellion on that planet? Interesting. I guess we'll check up on her eventually. Well, Cassian will eventually come back and say like, okay, what'd you do? And the thing is that if he's in jail and Vel was sent to go kill him, how's that gonna work out? Vel's gonna find out, because he was using a different name, right? So like, someone's gonna have to be going through like the faces who just got arrested and be like, wait, I recognize that guy. So I don't know. This was a pretty interesting episode. I enjoyed how much progress it felt like it had. Like it didn't feel like we're just like, oh, barely anything happened. Like a lot of stuff happened here. And yeah, I want to see the rest of that Clone Wars or Clone Trooper flashback. Like, how exactly did Cassian get out of that situation where he's running towards a bunch of clone troopers? Because somehow he lived, and I don't think he took down a bunch of clone troopers. So we're gonna have to see how that ended up. All right. I'll see you guys on the next episode.